Welcome to Vivid Verses. If our words resonate with you, please subscribe, tap the like, and share your thoughts and your feelings in the comments. Now let's begin. The sentence hung in the air above the cooling lasagna, suspended there like cigarette smoke in a stagnant room. It was a Tuesday, a generic, rain-streaked Tuesday in November that smelled of wet cedar and lemon dish soap. "I like the life we have," Mara said. She was pushing a piece of zucchini around her plate with the tines of her fork, creating small, wet squeaks against the ceramic. She refused to meet my eyes. "And I like having you here, the stability, but I don't know if I love you anymore." The kitchen hummed. The refrigerator compressor kicked on with a shuddering rattle I'd been meaning to fix for 3 weeks. Outside, the wind off the harbor slapped against the siding of the house I paid the mortgage on. The house where I'd spent the last 4 Saturdays sanding the deck because she wanted the wood to look fresh. I didn't drop my fork. I didn't gasp. I didn't flip the table. My heart did a strange, stuttering thing, a hard thump-pause thump against my ribs like an engine misfiring, but my hands remained steady. I took a sip of water. It was lukewarm. "Say that again," I said. My voice sounded foreign to me, detached, like I was listening to a recording of myself played back at half speed. Mara finally looked up. Her eyes, usually that warm, inviting hazel I'd written bad poetry about in college, looked flat, tired. There was a dullness there that I realized, with a sickening jolt, had been there for months. I just hadn't been looking closely enough to see it. Or maybe I had, and I just assumed it was the fatigue of modern life, not the expiration date of my marriage. "Declan, don't make me." "No," I interrupted, softly. Precise language, Mara. "It's important. You said you like having me. You like the stability. But the love is gone." She flinched. The words sounded uglier when I repeated them, stripped of her tentative cadence. "I didn't say gone. I said I don't know. It feels functional. We're functional. I just feel like I need space to figure out who I am outside of US. Outside of being your wife." I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the woman I'd supported through 2 career changes. The woman whose student loans I'd aggressively paid down by working 60-hour weeks at the firm, sacrificing my weekends, my gym time, and my sanity so she could feel debt-free and light. I saw the expensive highlights in her hair, the manicured nails tapping nervously on the oak table. I saw a parasite. The realization didn't come with rage. It came with a profound, icy calm. It was the feeling of a fever breaking, leaving you shivering but lucid for the first time in days. She didn't want a husband. She wanted a patron. She wanted the infrastructure of a marriage without the obligation of intimacy. "Okay," I said. Mara blinked. "Okay. Yes." I picked up my napkin and wiped my mouth. I placed it neatly on the table, alongside the uneaten half of my dinner. "Thank you for the clarity." Clarity? Her brow furrowed. She had expected a fight. She had expected me to beg, to plead, to promise counseling or date nights or more effort. She wanted the validation of my desperation. She wanted to see me bleed so she could feel significant. "You're unsure," I continued, standing up. The chair legs scraped against the floor. "Uncertainty is a waste of time. If you don't know if you love me, then the answer is effectively no. Love isn't an approximation, Mara. It's binary. You do, or you don't. It's not that black and white," she snapped, defensive now, sensing the shift in the atmosphere pressure of the room. "It is for me." I walked to the sink, scraped the lasagna into the disposal, and rinsed the plate. The water was hot, scalding my fingers, grounding me in the physical reality of the moment. I loaded the dishwasher. "Where are you going?" she asked as I walked past her toward the hallway. "To the guest room," I said. "You need space. I'm giving it to you." "Declan, stop. You're being dramatic. I just want to talk about my feelings about—" I stopped in the doorway and turned back. The hallway light cast long shadows across the kitchen floor, cutting the space between us into light and dark. "You told me I am a utility," I said, my voice devoid of inflection. "You like having me, like you like having a dishwasher or a reliable internet connection. You don't respect me, and you certainly don't desire me. You just don't want to lose the convenience of me." "That is not what I said." "It's exactly what you said. You just didn't like hearing the translation." I walked away. I went into the guest bedroom, a room that had become a storage unit for her crafting hobbies and off-season clothes, and shut the door. I didn't slam it. I closed it with a soft click. Then I locked it. I stood in the dark for a long time, listening to the silence of the house. I felt a phantom weight lifting off my shoulders, a heavy, suffocating blanket I hadn't realized I was wearing. The grief was there, sharp and bleeding, but underneath it was something else. Autonomy. The alarm went off at 5 a.m. A sharp, digital chirp that sliced through the stale air of the guest room. For the last 3 years, I had set it for 6:30. I did this because Mara was a light sleeper, and if I got up too early, she'd complain about the disruption. I compromised my natural rhythm to ensure her comfort. Not today. I rolled out of the unfamiliar bed. The mattress was too soft, and the room smelled like cedar blocks and dust. I pulled on my running shorts and a compression shirt. In the bathroom mirror, I looked at myself. I was 34 years old. I wasn't in bad shape, but I was soft. The definition in my deltoids was buried under a layer of husband weight, the result of comfort food dinners, skipping the gym to watch her shows, and the cortisol of carrying a two-income lifestyle on a single-income intensity. My eyes looked tired, outlined in gray. "Done," I whispered to the reflection. I walked into the kitchen. The house was silent. I didn't tiptoe. I ground coffee beans. The grinder screamed like a banshee in the quiet morning. Usually, I use pre-ground to avoid the noise. Today, I let it roar. I brewed a single cup in the French press. Dark, oily bitter. I drank it standing at the island, checking emails on my phone. Mara stumbled into the kitchen 10 minutes later, clutching her robe, hair messy, eyes squinting against the overhead lights I had turned on full blast. "Declan," she croaked. "What the hell? It's 5 in the morning." 5:15, I corrected, not looking up from my screen. "I'm going to the gym." She rubbed her eyes, looking at the coffee press. "Is there any left?" "No." She froze. "You didn't make enough for me?" "I made what I needed." I set my cup in the sink. "You know how to work the machine." I grabbed my keys and walked out the door into the pre-dawn chill. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask her about her schedule. I didn't kiss her forehead. The gym was a warehouse-style place 20 minutes away, one of those iron paradise joints that smelled of stale sweat, chalk, and testosterone. I hadn't been there in 8 months. I swiped my dusty membership card, hoping it was still active. The turnstile clicked open. I spent the next 90 minutes punishing myself. Deadlifts until my vision blurred. Squats that made my quads tremble like struck tuning forks. I wanted to feel something other than the hollow ache in my chest. I wanted the clean, honest pain of torn muscle fibers. When I showered in the locker room, scrubbing the sweat off with harsh, industrial soap, I felt a strange sense of reclamation. This body was mine again. It wasn't a pillow for someone else. It wasn't a beast of burden. It was mine. I went straight to the office. I worked as a senior analyst for a logistics firm. It was high-stress, high-volume work. For the past year, I'd been coasting, doing enough to be good, but not enough to be great because by the time 5 p.m. rolled around, I was mentally preparing for the second shift, Mara's emotional unloading, the dinner prep, the house maintenance. I sat at my desk at 7:30 a.m. The office was empty. I pulled the backlog of datasets for the West Coast distribution merger, a project I'd been dodging because it required focus I didn't have. I put on my noise-canceling headphones, put on a synthwave playlist, and dove in. I didn't come up for air until noon. When I checked my phone, There were 3 texts from Mara. 1. Are you coming home for lunch? I'm working from home today. 2. The Wi-Fi is acting up. Can you fix it remotely? 3. Declan, are you ignoring me? We need to talk about last night. I looked at the messages. I felt a twinge of the old reflex, the urge to fix, to soothe, to apologize for being unavailable. It was a muscle memory, deeply ingrained. I deleted the thread without replying. I went to the break room, ate a protein bar and an apple, and went back to work. My life became a grid of rigid discipline. The chaos of emotional ambiguity was replaced by the binary certainty of action and consequence. 5 o'clock, wake up. 5:30, gym. 7:30, office. 1900 hours, home. Meal prep. Read. Sleep. I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped eating sugar. I started dressing better. Not for her, but because the suits I wore were starting to hang loose on my frame, and I needed to get them tailored. The physical changes were rapid. The layer of soft grief melted away, revealing hard, corded muscle. My jawline sharpened. My posture changed. I walked with the predatory grace of a man who owes nothing to anyone. One evening, about 3 weeks into this new regime, I came home to find Mara in the living room. The house was a mess. This was the other side of the roommate reality. I had stopped cleaning up after her. I washed my dishes, did my laundry, and cleaned the guest bathroom. The living room was strewn with magazines, empty sparkling water cans, and discarded sweaters. The sink was full of rotting dishes. The trash was overflowing. Mara was sitting at the table, her head in her hands. She looked thinner, but not in the healthy way I was. She looked haggard. Her roots were showing. She hadn't been to the salon in weeks. She looked up when I walked in. I saw the bags under her eyes. "The electricity is off," she said. Her voice was small. I flipped the light switch. "Nothing. I paid my half into the joint account on the 1st, I said, setting my keys down. "Did you not deposit your share?" "I didn't have it, Declan. You know I didn't have it." She stood up, her hands trembling. "I had to pay for my car insurance, and the credit card bill came due, and I just didn't have it. I thought you would cover it. You always cover it. I'm not your safety net, Mara. I am your roommate." I pulled out my phone. I logged into the utility app and paid the full balance. She let out a breath, a sob escaping her throat. "Thank you. God, thank you. I was sitting here in the dark for 3 hours. I'll deduct your half from the equity of the house when we sell it," I said, putting the phone away. She froze. "Sell it. I'm looking at apartments closer to the city," I said casually. "This commute is eating into my gym time. And with my new promotion, I'll be traveling more." "Promotion?" She whispered the word. She looked at my suit, the way it fit my shoulders, the crispness of the shirt. She looked at the Rolex on my wrist, a gift to myself for the promotion bought yesterday. "You got promoted?" "Director of International Logistics," I said. "Marcus offered it to me last week. It comes with a significant raise. And a lot of travel. Why didn't you tell me? We don't talk, Mara. Remember? Clarity. You wanted space to figure out who you were." She walked around the table. She reached out, her hand hovering near my arm, but not touching it. She smelled like stale anxiety and cheap shampoo. She had downgraded her beauty products. "Declan," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't live like this. I'm drowning. I'm working 6 days a week at the gallery now, and it's still not enough. The house is falling apart. I'm lonely." I looked at her. I waited for the empathy to kick in. I waited for that familiar tug in my chest that made me want to fix her problems, to wrap her in the blanket of my competence. It wasn't there. There was just a smooth, marble surface where my heart used to be. "You wanted to know who you were outside of us," I said. "Now you know. You're a woman who can't pay her light bill and lives in a dirty house because she expects a man she doesn't love to be her janitor. That's cruel. It's reality. You were subsidized, Mara. You mistook my support for your own competence." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Tears spilled over her lashes. "I miss you. I miss my husband. I miss my best friend. You told your best friend you didn't love him. You fired him." I checked my watch. "I'm going out for steak." "Don't wait up. Can I come?" she asked. It was pathetic. A whisper of a plea. "Please. I'm hungry. There's no food in the house." I looked at her. I remembered the nights I'd cooked for her, the wine I'd poured, the feet I'd rubbed while she complained about her day. I remembered the Tuesday she told me she liked having me, but didn't love me. "No," I said. "I have a reservation for one." I didn't see Mara for 3 days after that. I was in Chicago for meetings, staying in a hotel that cost more per night than our monthly grocery budget used to be. I slept in a starfish position on a king-sized bed. I ordered room service. I flirted with a paralegal at the hotel bar. Nothing serious, just the sharp, electric volley of wit that reminded me I was a man, not a piece of furniture. When I returned, the house was clean. Immaculate, actually. It smelled of lemon pledge and lavender. Mara was in the kitchen. She was wearing a dress, a soft blue thing I used to like. She had done her hair. She had cooked. A roast chicken sat on the counter. Roasted vegetables. A bottle of expensive red wine, paid for with what money, I wondered, was breathing on the table. 2 candles were lit. I stood in the entryway with my garment bag over my shoulder. "Welcome home," she said. She tried to smile. It was brittle, terrified. "What is this?" I asked. "Dinner," she said. "For us." I picked up an extra shift. I sold some of my old designer bags. I want to do something nice. I walked into the kitchen. The food smelled incredible. My stomach growled. "Sit," she urged, pulling out my chair. "Please, Declan. Just sit." I sat. She poured the wine. Her hand shook. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, sitting opposite me. She didn't eat. She just watched me. About what I said. About that Tuesday. I cut into the chicken. "Go on." "I was wrong," she said. The words rushed out. "I was confused, and I was bored, and I was taking you for granted. I didn't realize how much you did, how much space you took up in the world until you made yourself small." "I didn't make myself small," I corrected, taking a sip of the wine. It was a chaotic blend, too much tannin. "I removed myself from your equation." "I know, and it's been hell. I hate it. I hate coming home to a cold house. I hate that you don't look at me. I hate that you're this stranger." She reached across the table and seized my hand. Her palm was clammy. "I love you, Declan. I do. I know I do now. I want to try again. I want to go back." I looked at her hand on mine. It felt heavy, unwanted. I looked at her face. I saw the desperation. I saw the fear of poverty, the fear of loneliness, the fear of losing the status I provided. But I also saw a flicker of genuine regret. It didn't matter. "You can't go back," I said quietly. We can. We can go to counseling. I'll quit the gallery. I'll find something better. I'll do the work." I gently pulled my hand away from hers. "Mara," I said, "do you know what I felt when you told me you didn't love me?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I felt like I was dying," I said, "for about an hour. And then I felt free. I have spent the last 10 years optimizing my life for your happiness. I curated my career, my hobbies, my sleep schedule, everything around you. And the moment I stopped, I became the man I was supposed to be." I gestured to myself, to the suit, to the air of calm authority. "I like this man," I said. "I respect him. And this man doesn't want to be with a woman who needs to lose him to appreciate him. That's not love, Mara. That's panic." "No," she sobbed. "No, it's not. I promise. It is. You love the utility I provide. You love the safety. And now that it's gone, you're scrambling to get it back. But the price has gone up, and you can't afford it." I stood up. I hadn't eaten more than 2 bites. "I'm filing for divorce next week," I said. "I've already retained a lawyer." Since we have no kids, and I've kept meticulous records of our finances since the separation of accounts, it should be straightforward. Divorce. She stood up, knocking her chair over. Over one conversation? You're throwing away 10 years over one conversation. Not one conversation, I said, picking up my bag. I'm throwing away a future where I am tolerated rather than adored. I'm trading a roommate for a life. Where are you going? She screamed as I walked toward the door. You can't just leave. I made dinner. I'm going to my apartment, I said. I signed the lease while I was in Chicago. The movers are coming for my things tomorrow. You can keep the furniture. You can keep the house if you can refinance the mortgage in your name within 90 days. If not, we sell. I opened the front door. The night air was crisp, smelling of rain and possibility. Declan, please. She ran into the hallway, collapsing to her knees, clutching the fabric of her dress. A tableau of regret. I love you. I love you. I looked back at her one last time. I felt a distinct lack of hatred. I just felt done. I know, I said, but I don't like having you anymore. I walked out and closed the door. 6 months later, the view from the penthouse balcony was panoramic. The city skyline glittered like a circuit board of gold and diamonds. The wind at this altitude was clean, stripped of the exhaust and rot of the streets below. I leaned against the railing, holding a glass of aged scotch neat. The liquid was amber fire in my throat, a sophisticated burn that settled warmly in my chest. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a notification from Zillow. Listing sold, 442 Maple Drive. The house was gone. Mara hadn't been able to refinance. She had moved back in with her parents in Ohio 2 weeks ago. I had heard through a mutual friend that she was working as a receptionist at her father's dental practice. The text also contained a finalized confirmation from my lawyer. The alimony was 0. The split was clean. I swiped the notification away. It felt like brushing a speck of dust off a lapel. Everything okay? I turned. Sarah stood in the doorway of the balcony. Sarah was different. She was an architect I'd met at a gala a month ago. She was sharp, successful, and fiercely independent. She had her own penthouse. She didn't need me to pay her bills, fix her Wi-Fi, or validate her existence. She challenged me. When we debated, it was a sparring match of equals, not a patient explanation to a child. She walked over, the silk of her emerald dress rustling like dry leaves. She didn't cling to me. She stood next to me, shoulder to shoulder, looking out the city. Just closing a tab, I said, sliding the phone back into my pocket. Work, old business. She smiled, a knowing, intelligent curve of her lips. She ran a hand down my arm, feeling the muscle beneath the fabric of my suit. Her touch wasn't possessive. It was appreciative. Well, dinner's ready, she said. I made risotto, but we can let it get cold if you want. I looked at her. I felt the hunger, real, visceral, and mutual. I saw the intelligence in her eyes, the strength in her posture. Let it get cold, I said. I pulled her close, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a utility or a safety net or a roommate. I felt like a king. I kissed her, and the taste was nothing like juniper or the bitter dregs of regret. It tasted like the future. Thank you for listening. That brings today's story to a close. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. See you next time.